Am I still here?
Yeah, you're there.
Move the chair so you don't fall.
Should I go?
Oh, hold on.
5, 4, 3.
Okay. All right, ready, on set, and go.
Hi, I'm Scott Stahl. I serve as the Multi-Area Director for Northwest Indiana FCA. I'm here today with Dave Krider, and we're celebrating his induction to the 2017 Hall of Champions. Dave, let's have a great day.
Right on. Well, it's very possible I'd be talking about basketball too, so I don't know.
Most likely. Okay, let's walk over here.
Yeah, I have to have a little bit of a background.
Okay, I gotta give you the backstory. Okay, this is awesome. You got that right there, stand right there.
All
Yeah.
right. Am I looking at you?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what else do you want your listeners to know?
Our listeners to know?
Yeah.
Well, one of my prayers every day, I go through a 3.5-page prayer list every morning, okay? One of my prayers for myself is that I'll be God's ever-growing, good and faithful servant, because in the Bible, this is the way God welcomes people into heaven. Well done, good and faithful servant. That's what I want to be. I don't want to ever stop growing. I don't want to be like Solomon, who had more than any human being ever had and just threw it away at the end of his life, worshipped idols. King Saul, the first king of Israel, he fell away from God quickly in his reign. I don't want to be like those people. I want to be God's ever-growing, good and faithful servant, and I want to love and adore him and Jesus more and more forever. There you go.
That's awesome.
I pray that prayer every day.
That's awesome, Dad.
And you know, are you still doing?
Yeah.
And I want to leave God and Jesus as my legacy on this earth, especially for you kids. You know, I want you to grow and to pass the word on, what you're doing with Junior. And I hope seniors right there too, you know, because you're my kids. And the only thing I want to leave for you that's really important is my faith. You know, that's what you guys want to have. And you had to struggle a long time, but I'm so happy that you're where you're at and that you have Matt. Okay?
Aww. I love you, Dad.
Love you too.
So Dave is in his 56 years a sports writer. Just a little bit about him. And during those 56 years, he's reached fairly national prominence. So much that prior to being here today, Dave is actually in place in 8 halls of fame in sports writing. 8! I didn't even know there were 8, Dave. So you're pretty good at this, right?
I hope so.
So he's written articles in Sports Illustrated, USA Today, Max Prep, 42 years, and those are great. But for 42 years, this man has served as a huddle coach in Indiana. 42 years. He's volunteered in camps in Central Michigan, at Central Michigan University in Black Mountain, North Carolina. But over those 42 years, as he embraced FCA's vision, and he began praying for his own town, he started that huddle in LaPorte High School, which eventually he launched in 1975. And so for 42 years, this has been a vital part of his ministry on a weekly basis. Scott Stahl is our staff person who you'll hear from in just a minute. I won't say a lot of what he said. He can say it in his own words, but he says this at the end, and I've actually got to verify this with you being standing here beside me. He says Dave has only missed 5 huddle meetings in 4 decades.
That's exactly true. and you know, four of those times I was covering basketball tournaments in Florida and different places in the country. One time my wife and I were both sick and we couldn't make it.
5 huddle meetings in 4 decades. So also a comment that I think you would find very relevant and inspiring. The former mayor of the city in which he lives, Blair Milo, says this: as a former member of the FCA huddle at my high school, I can personally attest to Dave's enthusiastic ministry and the positive impact and leadership of FCA and what it's had on my life. Now, more than ever, I fully appreciate his years of quiet, strong servant leadership for these young adults at the very time in their life, like mine, where they're making important decisions about their future. Dave, on behalf of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, 64 years of ministry, coaches, staff, volunteers, it's my honor to present to you a small representation of what it looks like to miss only 5 huddles in 4 decades. To put yourself in a position where for 4 decades you wash the feet of young people who now are husbands, fathers, mothers, and wives, and making a difference in their community. Dave Krider, thank you, and welcome to the Hall of Champions.
Thank you very much, Shane. First of all, I'd like to thank Scott Stahl for nominating me. Scott, I know why you did it, because I'm just having fun. Why should I have an honor like this, which is the greatest honor I've ever had? It really humbles me for just having the joy of being with these kids all the time. You know, this is my family. This has been my family for 42 years. And you know, I played pickup basketball with these kids till I was 49 in the summers. A lot of these kids that have gone through FCA have been my best friends, and some of them still are, even today. So I really want to thank Scott for nominating me. I would like to thank Shane and the committee for picking me. That's just a tremendous thing, because I know they've never had a sports writer before. Sorry about that. Or non-athlete, or non-coach. I fit all the other categories that aren't in here today. And so maybe I'll open it up for somebody else. I don't know. I would also like to take just a minute to thank my wife, Lois, who's been with me for 30 years. Lois, would you stand up, please? Here she is. She won't stand up. But she's been with me for 30 years, and when Scott nominated me, I had no idea I was going to make it. But I said, would you see if they'd give a co-award? Because when you have a wonderful wife who's with you for 30 years, and I prayed for her for 9 years before we got married, okay? To have a beautiful woman who loved the Lord and would help me in ministry, and here she is 30 years later. She's still here. And so, So I am truly humbled to be in what I call God's earthly hall of fame, okay? The other 8 for writing are they're materialistic things, okay? This is God's earthly hall of fame. So I accepted Jesus when I was 11 at my church in Elkhart, Indiana, and ever since then, my life has been a gigantic blessing ever since I was 11. It's true, really, it is. My first heroes were my Sunday school teachers. And when I was in my 30s, I took a Campus Crusade for Christ Bible study and learned that you can have a personal relationship with Jesus, and I never had it brought to me that way. And over the years, we've tried to do that in our huddle to let kids know right now. Kids will go to church for their whole lives and they'll never hear that. We have a lot of examples of that. But when they hear that you can have a personal relationship with Jesus, you don't have to go through anybody or anything. Minister as anybody else, you can just say, hey, Jesus, I want you, forgive me, and you're going to be with them. But kids didn't understand it. People didn't know it. So anyway, I learned if you love God, kids, and sports, you can be an FCA huddle leader, okay? Amen. You can be a farmer who pitches hays 5 days a week, and you can be at the FCA meeting on Monday night. So I learned that quickly, and I'm sure glad that God taught me, because it was supposed to be my ministry in the beginning. I really believed that. But I waited several years until the coach decided that he'd step in and get it going. And he came back and spoke a few years ago to our kids, and he was amazed to know that we were still going and that there was such a great group of kids and everything. So he was impressed, let's say, put it that way. Here's some of our records, okay? We meet in the kids' homes, okay? We don't meet on the campus. 108 kids in a house. We had them in 3 rooms. The rooms looked into a hallway, and the speaker stood in the hallway. So 108 kids in a house, and we had 100 at a meeting a year ago, which we still haven't beaten this record. We've had 11 marriages of kids that were in there together, okay? They're still all married. 20 or 30 second generation kids. I don't think I'll get to the next generation after that, but 20 or second generation kids, which is really terrific. And the kids that started this group, I think this is a great stat. Kids that started our group are 60-year-old grandparents now. I think it's a great stat. It really is. Just think about it. These kids are 60-year-old grandparents. So at our high school alone, now this is the LaPorte High School, this is 42 years at one school, represented former kids that were in FCA, our principal, our athletic director, our head baseball, head wrestling, and both volleyball coaches are my kids, okay? I call them my kids. So I thought that's just a phenomenal. And here's some other stats. I don't know all this, but here's what I know. At least 3 ministers, several lawyers, a former LaPorte mayor and fire chief, at least one policeman, an FBI agent, a national champion college basketball coach, a country singer, an author, and a famous model. These are just some of the kids that I remember that went through FCA, and this are the things that they turned into. Okay. Last thing I'd say here is that parents love this because we meet in their homes and they feed the kids and they know where the kids are that night, so they're not out getting into trouble. So the parents love this, and when we go to open houses for kids graduating, a year ago, I think it was, one of the parents asked me when I was going to retire, and I said, when I die. That's basically it. So, thank you very much.
You wore those at Christmas.
That's what happens when you get old and decrepit. You just, I was guarding this guy that day and said, "You really got one arm." And I was sticking my elbows in. I said, "I'm just a bag of bones." What do you think?
Do it again, please.
Well, what? Somebody want me to do it again?
Wait.
Well, we're doing one.